Alrighty, here we go. This section of the tutorial, we're going to talk about the data file and the requirements and how to get that data file into the application. So before we go into the app, let's talk about the data file itself. It is and should be an Excel file, and the Excel file, as I'll pop up here, first line is your headers. Pretty typical. These headers can be any name you want. The only restriction we have is you cannot have a set of parentheses within the data file, like or like that. You cannot have parentheses within your headers. Other than that, it's whatever you want. These headers will show in the application in the particular grids. They will also be the merge fields that you'll use within the template. As you create templates, you will surround these names with brackets to identify a merge field. So they're kind of important. If you don't like a particular field in the name, just go ahead and change it. So a couple of requirements. Obviously, since this is an email application, you need an email address field. If you have email and address within the field, we automatically recognize it. Same way with template. Emails are sent based upon a version of a template for a particular individual. They can be all the same template, rather than template ID V1, V2, V3. They could all be V1. They all get the same template, but this allows you to have custom templates based upon certain data. Let's say if this person was a VP, this person here, they may get an email based upon a different template than someone else. So pretty flexible. So that's your data file. It's pretty explanatory. We also support like this field here is actually a formula field. So we support formulas within data fields. We'll pull it in and we'll read the correct data. So it's a good deal. Alright, so that's the format of the data file. Next, you'll want to log into the application. And once you do, you'll get back to this familiar screen. Again, we had earlier created the first part of a campaign, which was a details tab right here. This should look familiar. And today we're going to talk about the data file tab. As you see, nothing's in here. On the lower right, there's an add button. Since we're on the data file tab, the add button is specific to data files. So if you click that, you'll be presented with a dialog box to go and find your data file. As you see, here we are. Double click on it. It adds a description, which is really just the name of the file. We can change this to be whatever we want. Compensation. And which row within that spreadsheet has the data. the active button is important. Only one data file can be active at a time. You can have multiple data files for this campaign. One data file can be just for testing. It might have, as you saw in my data file, I had maybe 5 rows, 6 rows. That's my test one. And then you can add later on additional data files until you're ready, but only one can be active at a time. So we're going to make this one active. And boom, there's the name of our data file, the actual file name, when it was added into the system, and if it's active or not. Let's say this is my test one. In fact, let's go back. If you notice, if I click on it, it brings up the editing. And let's call this just test data. Okay. All right. And let's say later on, or even now, I can add in another data file, and we can call this final data FY15 compensation. But we're not going to make this file active. We're going to leave it as is. Click on OK. So we have 2 files, test data, final. Let's go in and make the test data active. All right. So just like that, we have our data into the system. And next we'll talk about the actual data columns, format for those columns, and how the steps are to continue with the campaign. So let's go ahead and save the campaign. Back to this familiar screen, log out, and we're ready for the next section.